Okay, well, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Lisa. I am the branding community lead here at Dual. I am based in London, UK, as our Dual headquarters. We have recently expanded over to North America, which Jaclyn will talk about in a little bit. But this is the first event of a three-part series that we're going to be hosting around brand advocacy. And before we go into what we're going to cover today and in the future, Jaclyn, want to give a little introduction to who you are?
I do. Thank you. Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm Jaclyn. I'm the general manager of North America for Dual. I've been with the company 2.5 years. And prior to joining the Dual team, I spent almost a decade with Lululemon. So in Canada and Australia, really intricately understanding how to grow a brand through community. Lululemon has baked community into the core DNA of the business. And really, it's what has successfully allowed them to scale to the size they are today, with some pretty strong organic growth. So when I met the Dual team, which is a platform, a brand advocacy platform, I really loved that there was a company out there that was allowing brands to mimic at scale the ability to grow organically through creating communities, essentially communities, advocacy programs, ambassador programs. So yeah, excited to be here today to talk about the foundations of what advocacy is.
Thanks, Jack. So exactly what you were saying, what we've been talking to with a lot of brands in our community right now, and the needs that they have is really comes down to a lot around customer acquisition costs and how they are skyrocketing, going through the roof. And we thought that it would be valuable for everyone if we did a little three-part series, starting with the basics that we'll cover today around what is brand advocacy. It's a big term. There are a lot of terms out there, and we're going to go back to basics with it today. And then in a couple of weeks, we have our head of growth and our head of commercial, Alex Cook and Ollie Smith, who are going to be coming on to lead us through a second and third part of this series around the value of brand advocacy, diving deeper into what does this actually mean and why is it valuable. And then finally, the economics and the ROI of brand advocacy, really getting deeper into the numbers there. So we will put those event links into the chat towards the end of the session today. But before we get this all kicked off, just a little bit of housekeeping. At the bottom, you'll see a Q&A box. So throughout the sessions, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them our way. And we will do our best to answer throughout the webinar today and potentially at the end as well. We can always circle back. So Jaclyn, before we jump in, what brings you excitement when we're talking about this topic today?
Such a good question. That was not part of this. Okay, so what brings me excitement when it comes to advocacy is that I fully back it. I believe in it and I trust it. It's because I've seen it before. And, spending so many years on the ground working for a retail company that was solely focused on growing the brand through relationships, I've seen investing in people and investing into relationships really drive advocacy at scale and really drive word of mouth. So yeah, the reason why it excites me is because I fully back it as a business strategy. I'm very happy to say right now that in recent times, I've definitely received pushback. Lululemon is valued at $46 billion these days. And there's 25,000 employees on the ground driving advocacy. And it's not easy to mimic, but nobody should be copying where Lululemon is today. They should be copying where they were day one. So yeah, that's what excites me about advocacy as a topic.
I think that's great. And I think a lot of our brands out there who are not quite at that scale yet are excited to learn a little bit more. So let's jump right in.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So what I'll take you through today is the emergence of brand advocacy, and then looking at this idea of the brand network, and then finally talking about how to engineer advocacy. Advocacy can really be engineered to support business goals and objectives, if not if done correctly, but if actually focused on. So to kick off, and I know we've all been part of webinars before, and they're always quite funny because we can't see attendees, but you guys can see us. So definitely feel free to use the chat. What I want to ask Lisa, and if anybody wants to share their take as well, is what is one of your favorite brands and why?
There are a lot of brands out there. I think I feel like I have different brand crushes every week of the month. Recently, there are a couple that come to mind. We talked with one of the brand partnership team members of TikTok the other month, and I've been looking a lot at brands and how they're showing up on TikTok on this entertainment platform. And Pangaea is one that comes to mind. I think what they're doing on there and a couple of their other social media platforms is they're talking about more than just the product. They're not just selling their sweatshirts and their sweatpants. They're actually educating around sustainability and their values of their brand. And I feel like when I go on and I see their socials, I'm learning something, and I'm learning something about more than just the product, or more into why the product was actually created. So they're ones that I like right now. Would you like some other examples?
You know what? We're having a few come through the chat, and what I love about what we're seeing, and I don't know if it's mind everybody, but what we're seeing as a trend is that there's a true theme in what you're sharing about why you love a brand, and the trends that I'm seeing come through and the responses that are coming is not one of you has said that they talk about their products. Mm-hmm. Everything is about them standing for something greater than the products or the services essentially that they sell, because that is the world that we're in today. And what you did right then and there is you advocated on behalf of a brand based on what they stand for. And that is the whole point. It's really like investing in people. So to go back to basics, what's the definition of a brand? A brand is the reputation of an organization. It is how it is seen in the eyes of external parties. And for better or worse, every organization and person has a reputation and therefore a brand. Advocacy is when a person supports or recommends something. So when we think of brand building as a whole, this is the old way of brand building. It's profit first. Shareholder return, everybody was looking to support and ensuring that the shareholders were able to make money at all costs. It was centralized, it was top down, ad powered. Think about it, ads were the only way that brands were able to get their stories told, right? Like ads anywhere around the tubes, billboards, TV, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And short term.
Yeah, coming from traditional advertising, I remember working with brands that were all about their TV ad spend, the billboards, the magazines, and it's definitely different these days.
Totally. Yeah. And short term, right? So like we've all been in a situation, having worked at a brand specifically, we maybe had a soft quarter and there were some really specific hacks that I'm not saying we did, but just like short-term hacks was a route. That's the old way. The new way is people first. So right now what we're seeing is conscious consumerism, people equals profit. It's really everything that everyone just shared. Decentralized. So we're looking at values and passion-led networks. It's community powered. So really caring deeply about everybody in the brand network. It's direct to customer, direct to community is another way to look at this. And through that, there's able to be more remarkable experiences driven, and it's long-term. So the work that I experienced firsthand with Lululemon is that every tactic that we worked on and that we pulled from a community point of view wasn't a short-term hack. It was to provide like long-term sustained growth. What we're experiencing today in the world is that we're all creators. So everybody is a creator and we're all hyper connected across multiple platforms with our own circle of influence, not influencers. Everybody has influence, right? Like I'm on a platform, you're on a platform, everybody is. And within milliseconds, everybody can be connected and share a personal story, share a brand story. What we're seeing from a brand point of view is that there are many distinct personas, but what I want to highlight today are the 4 very distinct personas of this hyper-connected world that a brand might have under their portfolio. And it's the typical customer. So this is the purchasing customer. Then there's the ambassador, a little bit of a bigger following across multiple channels. Then there's the in-store employee. So for those in-store and e-commerce brands, equip your employees with an amazing experience, and they are 100% your best advocates. And then there's the industry expert. So for those who professionally use products, they are also amazing advocates. All of this plays into this idea of community though. So the modern connected world has radically changed how companies grow. It has shifted to decentralized networked ecosystem where community powers everything. And what I would highlight in this is that COVID gave brands permission to shift this way. And there are new platforms coming out all the time that are shifting to a more decentralized ability for brands to have their storytelling be done through other people. Some of the most valuable brands in the world have grown through community. So Glossier, Gymshark, amazing direct-to-consumer brands who grew solely through community and ambassador programs, who are now going to the brick and mortar space because their community wants to be with them in person. And then there's Lululemon and Patagonia, who both grew predominantly through community from a retail brick and mortar perspective, who then ventured online and are going from a more global point of view to connect with their communities. When we look at brand building today versus previously, and we look at great brands of the world, ad power brands are brands of yesterday. So you're able to spend money to acquire one customer, and that's done time and time again. But what these community powered brands have done, what the Gymsharks and Patagonias of the world have done, is that they've invested in that one high trust person. They've given this one high trust person an amazing experience. Experience has nothing to do with your customer success team anymore. That is like just an absolute given. If anything to do with purchasing a product, it showing up on time, all that, that's just a given, right? Everybody in the world these days expects that just as standard. But the experiences are more, what are the touch points from the latter part of the customer journey from a post-purchase perspective that really drives this person to understand a brand story and then retell it. So this high trust person is telling a friend who's then telling a friend who's telling a friend. So these community powered brands have really figured out ways to crank essentially these organic acquisition channels while turning reliance down on paid acquisition channels. And what we're experiencing in that is what we consider to be the advocacy flywheel. So you've got your prospects, customers, fans, and then advocates. So it's really focusing on turning prospects into customers, for sure, customers into fans, but then using the advocates to power acquisition at every touch point because they've had an amazing experience with you. And we'll get into like what those touch points can be. They've had an amazing experience with you, so they're willing to tell your story. So I'll leave that there for now. That's the foundations.
Jaclyn, let's pause for a second. I know you are excited about something when you speed talk.
Oh no.
There was a lot of content there. I just have a couple of questions in the chat. Can we go back a few slides to those 4 personas that you brought up? That was a really juicy one. And we have a question, that one right there. Perfect. So we've got Tom, the in-store employee, passionate enthusiast. We have some brands that are all e-com. What does that experience look like for those employees who actually don't have that physical store to advocate from? How, I think we'll go into that a little bit more, but I think this is something that would be great to touch upon.
Yeah, I think there's 2 elements of it. The first important element is that people are offline. So even though an e-commerce business might be entirely online, people are offline, and therefore your employees have their own networks. So if employees are equipped with an amazing experience from a brand perspective, meaning like the internal workings of the organization are absolutely killer. They feel supported by an organization in their internal personal lives, and they might be equipped with some of the brand's product. The chances of that person sharing their experience of where they spend, 40 to 60 hours a week with is extremely, extremely invaluable. So they might not necessarily, without prompting, be like posting on Instagram. They might not be sharing a referral link if they don't have one. But if they have access to ways that they can physically advocate for the brand in an offline world, then they can pull on those levers. But I do think the most important thing to consider is that they are offline. So how can a brand really focus on the people workings to support somebody, to support the human side of things from an organizational perspective? So all they can do is share with their friends why they have the best job in the world and therefore advocate on behalf of the brand for that reason.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. I think I've seen brands who completely bypass that as well. Like you've got these people who are donating, I guess they're getting paid, hopefully, but so many hours of their work week, right? So if they're actually educated with the right tools to speak about that brand or company or product powerfully, it's a good one to not forget about as a company.
Definitely.
Okay, great.
Any other cues coming through at the moment?
This flywheel. Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay. So the next topic is powering brand advocacy through your community. What we know is a business is its network of people, which we deem to be the network, the brand network. And any modern consumer brand is made up of many different sub networks within the overarching brand. So it can be made up of, or it is made up of fans and customers, employees and stakeholders, thousands of industry professionals and experts, depending on the area, influential athletes and creators. And when broken down more specifically, what we know is that every organization is sitting on an absolute goldmine of people who love them. I would suspect that everybody attending today is on, at minimum, two social channels, I should say, probably Instagram, probably TikTok. There's the Pinterests of the world, there's the YouTubes of the world, but then we're not even considering here the CRM as a channel or Facebook as a channel. So every brand has this mass of customers that are sitting in so many different areas that can essentially be activated on to then drive advocacy through and get these guys sharing from a decentralized way the brand's story and word of mouth. When you break it down from a more organizational point of view, each department, let's say, is responsible for different elements of these different groups of the brand network. And what I love about this idea of advocacy is that it can really support cross-functional teams to drive a cohesive and consistent result when everybody is working towards getting each of their brand networks storytelling on behalf of the brand and really creating this army of storytellers and word of mouth advocates on the ground for any given brand, essentially at any given time. What I do want to highlight here is that who we aren't considering under this umbrella right now, this is who we're not considering under true authentic advocacy. And it's Scarlett London and it's Scott Disick, let the Lord be with you. And the reason why is because these guys are paid on behalf of a brand to say that they like it. And what we're missing in this is that innate customer first love for a brand, which is what truly drives advocacy and what truly drives organic growth. Scarlett London, this is a Listerine ad, and she says, I woke up like this. Like, she didn't wake up like this. And then Scott Disick, unfortunately, from whoever he's promoting, he copied and pasted the entire caption, including, here you go, at 4 p.m. EST, right the below. So what we're not considering in this is that we're not considering the guys who are paid to do this. We're considering the people who have like a truly innate love for your brand. They're customers first. They buy the product, they use the product. And how can you actually power them to become more vocal advocates if they aren't already? I love this quote. This is from Camilla Craven. You don't need to be an influencer to have influence. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Each one of us, if we consider those 4 groupings, each one of those groupings, the customer, the ambassador, the employee, and the industry expert, they don't need to be influencers, but they all have their own circles and audiences and networks that they will have influence over. So to break this down and just to give an example that you guys can then take away and consider, what are all the sub-communities within your existing organization that could advocate for you? So when I break it down from Lululemon's perspective, there are the brand ambassadors, and there's about 2,500 globally now. They're all localized for each specific store. And in those local communities, brand ambassadors are local heroes. They are relatable. If you've ever walked into any store, chances are somebody on the wall on the photos owns a studio on that street. So therefore, when people come in, they're like, oh, I know them. So it's entirely relatable. It's not Kylie Jenner promoting Puma, essentially. It's like this really authentic side of things. There's the customer community. Customers are huge advocates for any brand. There's also the fitness pro community. There is a small program called the Sweat Collective, specifically for the fitness pro community to essentially like thank them for using the product for what it's meant to be worn for and collecting their feedback in return. And then there's the employee community. So as we talked about before, a fabulous internal experience. I'm advocating for the brand right now. I will continue to do it for forever because of the experience that I had with them. And these are all some really specific sub-communities that can be activated upon to drive advocacy at scale, essentially.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jack. I love that quote from Camilla Craven around not having to be an influencer to have influence. Personally, I was just reflecting on any kind of great experience that I've had and how whoever I talk to that day, whether I go home and talk to my partner and then I call a friend and then maybe I'm online talking to a couple of people, that message does spread. And if you're going to be out there and having incredible experiences with brands, it's only natural that you're going to start talking to other people about it and therefore creating a really authentic influence to other people around. There's a question here in the chat, Jaclyn, around kind of like affiliates and where we talked about influencers a bit, but the questions around where do affiliates and influencers kind of fit into this and what good are these guys for, because they exist with a lot of brands out there as well.
100%. So I would say that there is not like a blended definition, but there could be a bit of a blended definition between ambassador, influencer, and affiliate. What I would say to caveat all of that is the word authentic. So where brands and what we have seen firsthand, what I've seen firsthand working with Dual, is the most successful brands have been able to drive long-term, sustained brand love and brand growth through those that authentically and innately care about them, what the brand stands for, and then therefore the products that they make. So influencers, I totally appreciate the category and they are extremely beneficial. And what I'm talking about here are those like smaller scale people that are authentic, that you could perhaps like deem an ambassador and create like a smaller scale ambassador program for. And this isn't their job. It could be like, a bit of a fun activity, but to me, an influencer at times, and even affiliate at times, their job is driven, their career is driven through this. And I think the difference when it comes to advocacy is that it's driven through innate brand love. For sure, high following, influential people could still have innate love for a brand and still be authentic and still have this as a career. But we want to focus on, in this sense, for advocating powerfully, those with the authentic connection to a brand and the innate brand love.
Great. Love that. Super clear. And we've got another question around some more examples of what you've talked about, which I think you are going to get into.
Yeah, let me share some examples coming up. And then, if we're missing a few examples, then let me know and we can pull some more. So what I want to talk about is essentially how to engineer advocacy. So most brands are designed to sell, but the best brands are engineered to drive word of mouth and advocacy. So when I consider advocacy, there are so many different arms of advocacy. And I want to take you guys through, I would say I probably have 7 examples of all these different arms of advocacy. And what hasn't necessarily and really my team and I focused a bunch of years on the foundation and the methodology and the consumer psychology behavior around why somebody advocates and how they do it. And how they do it is already happening across the board. And what has become a lot more obvious to myself and to the brands that we work with is pulling all these arms of advocacy together en masse just makes it more powerful. There are so many individual arms. So let's get into those right now. Uber pulled on the referral arm of advocacy. Uber grew their business they unapologetically grew their business through referrals. So, webinar hands up, but like who signed up to Uber and then got their Jaclyn 19 code that they could then share or a friend sent to them. And that's how they were introduced to the company. And that's how the company grew. So that's one arm. I see a few virtual hand raises. So that's one arm of advocacy. Another arm of advocacy is loyalty. So having like robust loyalty programs that brings somebody back to you is creating a really enhanced experience for them. It's a digital experience for the most part, but it's creating an experience that they're like, yeah, I'm coming back to get points because I'm rewarded and incentivized for the actions that I'm taking, which is spending. So loyalty is another arm of advocacy. Reviews and testimonials are an absolutely huge, significant arm of advocacy. Somebody leaving a review for a piece of product, for an experience, whatever that may be, in the world that we're in right now and in the growth that we've seen from a D2C perspective, especially with COVID, reviews were invaluable to a brand because real humans want to hear from real humans who are using the product for what it's meant to be used for, and they want to know if they should make that decision as well. Somebody that's leaving a review, positive or negative, is advocating for a brand. A testimonial, very, very similar. Somebody sharing their experience that's going to allow somebody else to do it is also extremely invaluable. Patagonia grew their worn wear program through testimonials. They didn't go out and advertise it, but they collected testimonials from those who were participating in the program to then grow the program. User-generated content, again, like so big in the time that we're in right now. People want to make an informed decision online when they see other people are using it as well. They don't want to be the first to say like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure what people think of this. The reason why I have made.com as an example here is because it's so hard to get user-generated content that looks good, that you would be willing to put onto your product display pages of furniture. IKEA was one of the first that actually really like went full out with a user-generated content campaign. But really, yeah, it's hard. And the reason why I'm highlighting made.com here is because furniture is even harder, and they have really been able to power a lot of their growth. And they have an advocacy arm within their internal organization, power their growth through collecting user-generated content.
I think, Jack, just to pause there for a second, I think it also goes back into the trust you were talking about before with reviews, right? People want to see, what does this product or what does this, this furniture actually look like in real life? Because the trust in messaging over some social media platforms and in the world today has gone down and down. They want to hear from real people. So I think that's a great example.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And social posting, exact same. So trust for sure. Seeing real people wearing the product so you can make an informed decision on how does it fit? Do I look like that person? Is that skin tone's like similar? It's really utilizing a relatable element to drive conversion. However, the people that are actually taking the action to post it, like they're advocating on behalf of a brand. If you are going to your networks, whether you have an open or closed profile or not, typically those that have closed profiles, like that are just like me, I'm not an influencer, but I have my friends on there. My friends are going to listen to my trusted opinion on a piece of product that I'm using. So social posting is probably the most obvious, and definitely really, really works. Feedback. I absolutely love feedback as an arm of advocacy. Chubby's has done a phenomenal job of this. Chubby's shorts brand in the US, really cheeky, really funny. What these guys do regularly is go out to their CRM and they say, hey, we're sitting on this fabric. What do you want us to make with it next season? Or we're building out our fabric or our product offering for next season. What do you want to see? So what styles do you want to see? By inviting your customers into the feedback loop, you're inviting them into creating the future of your brand, which when we talk about giving them experiences, this is an experience. If you then listen to their feedback, take it on and produce something and let them know that you've heard them, they are wowed by it. The fact that they've been able to share their opinion to a big organization and the big organization has taken it on and done something about it. It's those sorts of experiences from a post-purchase customer journey point of view that really drives somebody to have more brand loyalty, but to then advocate for the brand. So what somebody's going to do after a brand has asked them their feedback, the brand has taken it on. And I don't mean like you have to take on every single person's piece of feedback, but even like acknowledging it, that friend to their own networks or that influencer to their networks would say, how cool is this? These guys asked me my opinion. They're then advocating on your behalf because of how you made them feel. And it's that simple. I think this is the final one, but the final one is co-creation and collaboration. So quite similar to the feedback example, but this brand Tropic Feel went to their community and they collaborated with them to co-create a product. again, it's those sorts of experiences that you're providing customers that are beyond just your customer success and are beyond your product landing appropriately in their mailbox within the time frame that they're hoping for. It's those experiences that is allowing them to become your decentralized storyteller on the ground. So in all these, those are a few examples of like different arms of advocacy. And what we're seeing brands do now is bring them all together. So not just focusing on one of them, but focus on and own in on a couple of them together to support overarching business goals and objectives. So I've got two examples of brands that have pulled together a bunch of these to create an actual program for their those that will advocate for them. The first one is Deeper. So Deeper is a fishing brand, global. The passion point of this group of people is phenomenal. And Deeper wanted to give these fishermen a way to essentially share their experiences with what they love. And what they love is fishing. It's their passion point. So Deeper created a program where they have been gifted referral codes they can share with their friends. They've been asked for user-generated content. They've been asked their feedback. And the result of it is some really comprehensive user-generated content that's been curated to support business objectives. They now use content like this in campaigns, in social outreaches, in CRMs. And now the brand, on behalf of their customers, they're speaking through them, right? So they're able to share, not from a low trust point of view, they're able to share from a high trust point of view experiences that their customers have had with their products. And then Monica Vinader is another example. These guys are a jewelry brand based here in the UK, but global. And they were looking from a business point of view, looking to grow brand awareness. So they were able to determine that there was a group of innate brand fans who had innate love for the company and were already advocating on their behalf. And they engineered a program to allow them to achieve those business objectives of brand awareness. So they engineered experiences for the insiders by creating a program and essentially requesting that they create content around different campaigns, my new manicure with my jewelry out on the town, things like that. Monica Vinader was able to invite the insiders into working with the brand in a different way, which is also an experience. So the insiders feel closer to the brand because they're asked their opinion, they're asked to essentially create things, and they're asked how they feel about the product that's coming, product that was around last season. Is there anything missing? And then they are able to then go through very tactical engineered channels to advocate for the brand. So when we look at these examples from a far more tactical level, and I totally appreciate this is like an intro to brand advocacy, and we could spend like 5 hours talking about the nitty gritty how these are some ways that all these advocacy arms are happening already. I suspect that many of you are able to identify like, yes, we're doing referrals and like we might be collecting UGC. It's kind of hard to make sure that it's on brand. So I'm not really sure what to do there. Reviews, yeah, they definitely work. We could collect more. It's really focusing on like pulling them all together, engineer it. So like give your customers a reason to advocate for you. People are doing it already. And like, if the easier that you make it, the more chances of them doing it is just a lot higher. So I'll leave that there. I do know we're about to get into something like a little bit more deeper that hopefully brings it all home. But Lisa, I will put it to you if there's anything that has come through.
I mean,
before we carry on.
You were asked for examples. I feel like that really just delivered. Those were some incredible examples, Jaclyn. And really, as you said, showing different ways that all of these arms of advocacy work individually, but then, of course, putting them together to actually create the bigger results that brands want. I think this is great. So I do have another brand that's just messaged me in the chat around starting out. So they're a brand that's brand new, starting out. They don't have a big foundation, a big community yet. Where do we want to start with this? Where do we start if we're these guys?
Okay. So let's consider Shall we play it out? Shall we play this out?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, if you're the brand, if you can pretend that you're the brand, what are your business objectives for the year?
Um, my brand. I think, I think in speaking to lots of brands recently, a couple of common themes that come up. Two biggest objectives are around brand awareness and acquisition.
Yeah. Okay. So for brand awareness, one of the things that I would recommend is focusing on driving engineering advocacy through social posting. It's quite easy to do. A lot of people have access to social profiles. That's all well and good. We need to actually start one step prior to that. Do you know who your top spenders are?
I would say yes. I have some data and analytics around my top spenders. Yes.
Do you know who your most engaged customers are? Engaged being who likes your post the most, who opens your emails the most, who's left the most reviews, who is actually already advocating on your behalf, who is posting about you already, who is tagging you, who has shared the most referral links, who has had the most referral links redeemed. Do you know any of that off the top of your head or innately?
Yeah, I would say no as well, because I know that those two things are not always linked. Usually not. Sometimes they are, but no.
Okay. So that is where you'd want to start. Where you'd want to start is really intricately understanding who are the people that are already advocating for you that you have no idea about. When we look at like segmenting customers, a lot of the conversations are always centered around spend. And when we look at rewarding customers, it's rewarding based on spend. So, this person has spent the most, they're in our VIP spend tier, therefore they get access to XYZ. Where we're pivoting in this from an advocacy point of view is looking at those who are engaging with you the most and are already advocating essentially on your behalf. If this is like really the starting point, then what I would recommend doing is like finding the first 10, finding 10 of them, finding 10 people who are engaging with you and reaching out to them, call them, literally going back to like such basics where you call them up and say, I see that you're already actively engaging with us. Like, can I ask why? Or can I ask what you love about us? Can I ask you feedback on that most recent post you created? Or you left a review on this. I'd love to know more. We're hosting a design session. Do you want to be a part of it? So it's really like figuring out who are those people that are doing it for you, figuring out why. And then a couple options is you can say, okay, so here we're ready to make an advocacy program where we want to make this easier for us from a brand perspective. So we will deem this advocacy strategy 101 or our advocacy program 101. And then that's where you can start to engineer the asks of advocates and then incentivize and reward them. So we haven't even touched on how to carry on this engineered behavior from a rewards perspective. But this is where those experiences can really come into play. So, for example, you have 10 ambassadors. You invite them to a design session with the product team and the CEO. You want to hear all their feedback. They're the ones using it. They have had an amazing experience. It has nothing to do with buying, but they've had an amazing experience. So not only do they feel special and included, they will talk about the brand because of the experience they had. And that word of mouth there is quite invaluable. So it's really considering what are those little elements that you can then plant with this really small group first when you're just starting out. And it could be 5, it could be 3, but really understand them and start to incentivize them for advocating on your behalf while also engineering it. So a little bit long-winded. I do have a bit of a recap to where to start. And the first thing would be to determine business goals and objectives. Advocacy can support the same way community can overarching business objectives from a revenue standpoint if you're clear on what you're looking for. If you're looking for brand awareness and all you're doing is asking for, I can't even think of just creating a loyalty program, that is a retention method. Loyalty is a retention method. It's not an acquisition method. So really consider what are the objectives, so then you can begin to engineer. Identify those that are already engaging with you the most. Give them a way to engage with you even more that supports business objectives. So if it is brand awareness, asking for social posts, asking for reviews, but in a way that's like not cheesy or tacky. And then incentivize them for doing so through unique experiences and rewards. So
what I love about that as well, Jack, is with having that confirmation from those key people who are so in love with the brand around why they actually love the brand. I know there are brands out there who think that people love them for XYZ, and actually it's a few different things that maybe were in their blind spots as well. And they can actually use to power and create more brand awareness and more brand love. So I think that sounds good.
yeah, so I will leave it there for now. I do appreciate 40 minutes to talk about all things brand advocacy isn't long enough. I'd love to get into more details. But as Lisa mentioned, it is a 3-part series. So the latter of the webinars should answer hopefully some outstanding questions, but I'll pass over to you, Lisa, for Q&A.
Yeah, we've only got a couple minutes left, and we had some of those questions that came through the chat throughout the talk today, which was great. So thank you so much, Jaclyn, for taking us back to basics. I hope our brands in the audience learned a few things today. And like Jaclyn mentioned, our next event will be 2 weeks from now on June the 8th at the same time. I am going to post a little link in the chat so you can sign up to that Eventbrite. Oh, and the hyperlink did not work. I will send another link in a second. And that way we can hopefully see all of you again. We're going to be hearing from the head of growth from Dual, who's really going to dive deep into the value of all this. Now that we've got some basics laid out, clear on more concepts and terms and the state of the state, we're actually going to go into why is this valuable as a company, as a brand, and why you should invest in brand advocacy. Because there are so many different levers you can pull under the marketing umbrella, and looking at the actual impact of this on the bigger picture is really interesting. So that will be our second one, part 2. I hope we see you guys in a couple of weeks.